My stick doing magic, I feel like a wizard. Walked in with the ice, it just might cause a blizzard. Feel like a nerd, keep picking up figures. Don't say that's your wife, and she lick me like lizard.
What's up, YouTube? It's your boy K, and today we're looking at why Invincible can't have better animation. Me personally, I don't have a problem with it, but hey, let's get into the video. Alright, chat, let's go.
Season 1 looked like this. Season 2 looked like this. And Season 3 looks like this. Somehow, the animation got worse with each season. There's less use of lighting and shadows, the backgrounds have fewer details, the character designs and expressions are simpler, and there are way more static scenes. In Season 3, they even reused shots from Season 2, thinking we wouldn't notice. But how is that even possible? How can the writing keep getting better, while the animation gets worse? It's almost funny how fans can recreate scenes from the show with even more detail, smoother movements, and stronger personality.
See, now that he just brought that up from what happened in the beginning, like with all of this stuff, and the movie PNGs, I kind of see where fans coming from now. Cause at first when they said, "Oh, this animation sucks," I didn't really know what they was talking about. I'm like, "What are you talking about? This animation is good to me." But now that I'm seeing the point of view from them, I kind of understand what they coming from.
Getting better, while the animation gets worse. It's almost funny how fans can recreate scenes from the show with even more detail, smoother movements, and stronger personality. These fan-made scenes have a cinematic feel, like they're straight out of a big-budget Hollywood film. You might prefer a different style, but there's no denying that they stand out more than the original scenes, which look flat and lifeless. Sometimes it looks like they're sliding a PNG across the screen.
Unacceptable.
We can explain Invincible's poor animation with just two words: money and time, the two things Invincible doesn't have. You might think it's a multi-million-dollar show just because the Prime Video logo appears in the intro. But in 2023, Marge Dean, one of the executive producers, said that Invincible had only a quarter of the budget of The Boys. That show costs $11 million per episode, which is already on the low side for a top-tier series.
Live action.
To give you an idea of what Prime Video...
I mean, it's animation with live action. It's still not good that they giving The Boys more money, but like, it's animation. You can't... Yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
Video usually spends. Citadel costs $50 million per episode, and Rings of Power costs $58 million. If we take Marge Dean's statement seriously, we'd have to divide 11 by 4, which leaves us with just $2.75 million per episode. Financially speaking, that's monopoly money. I know it seems like a huge number to us regular folks making minimum wage, but keep in mind that those $2 million cover the total budget for each episode. That money isn't just for the animators. It also covers the writers, directors, composers, editors, colorists, and voice actors who take a big chunk of the budget. Invincible has some very well-known actors who probably get paid really well, like Steven Yeun and J.K. Simmons. That $2 million isn't enough to hire the best
but now that he just factored in $2.75 million for everything for an episode, yo, that is actually crazy.
Animators out there. And there's also not enough money to expand the team and get more people working on Invincible. A show like this should have a massive team because the comic is packed with action, explosions, and superpowers. But seasons 2 and 3 only had about 10 animators per episode, the same number as X-Men 97. That show looks way better than Invincible, but Marvel was able to pull off that level of detail and smoothness because its episodes are half the length. Invincible's episodes are 40 minutes long, double the standard runtime for animated TV shows. In an interview with Bleeding Cool, Marge Dean said they have to create twice as many assets as a normal animated show because Invincible has tons of different designs, models, and backgrounds. And with a small team, that's really tough. Even the show's animators explain this in comments like this one. This user says they worked on the compositing team for seasons 2 and 3 and that they wish the show had a level of detail similar to Arcane or Castlevania. But that was impossible with such a small team. There were only 4 people in their department, including the editor. Just 4 people to handle over 200 shots per episode. To help you understand why this is so important, compositing is the stage where all the elements on screen get put together. The characters, backgrounds, and effects. This is also where lighting, shadows, and filters are added to make the final image look good, like in this scene from season 1. But if there's no time to work on this stage, the composition will be basic, and the characters will look pasted onto the background with no depth at all, like slapping PNGs onto a static photo. Compositing is what sets these two images apart.
I think I just learned something.
If Invincible had more than 10 VFX compositors, it would have looked way more cinematic. But to have a team that big, the show's budget would have needed to be bigger, like way bigger. Arcane, for example, had a budget of $14 million per episode, 5 times more than Invincible. And Across the Spider-Verse, which is one of the best animated projects.
That's like, I'm not even gonna do math, but that's a whole bunch more money.
ever, cost $110 million. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, the film's directors, said their team had over 1,000 animators from all over the world. Invincible has just 10 animators per episode, and some episodes have even fewer. It's not that these animators lack talent, skill, or motivation. They just can't keep up with the workload. I know this won't be a popular opinion, but we should actually be grateful.
Prime Video, you better get your act together, bro. Cause Invincible is my show, bro. Do not slander this show anymore and get more animators, get more budget. Please, I'm begging you.
That the show looks the way it does, and not way worse. The real culprit is Jeff Bezos and the execs at Prime Video, who didn't want to invest properly in the adaptation of one of the best superhero comics ever.
Cheapness is not a sin.
And I already know what you're thinking. None of this explains how a fan managed to do this from their own home, or why the teasers look way better than the full episodes, or how Demon Slayer looks infinitely better despite having a budget of just $80,000 per episode. That's only 4% of Invincible's budget. Wasn't a huge budget supposed to be necessary to do things right? It is, but that's where time comes in. Season 1 was in production for almost 3 years, from 2018 to 2021. Even with a small team, they had enough time to create beautiful animations like this one, and put more effort into compositing.
Bro, season 1, bro, oh my god. When I got to that part with Omni-Man and Mark, chef's kiss, bro.
Which is the weakest part of the later seasons. Of course, they use classic tricks to save time and money, like using CGI for backgrounds and vehicles, or hiding characters' mouths in less important scenes, so they only had to animate the eyes when they're talking. But that happens in every animated show, even the ones with way bigger budgets. And yeah, I know there were a few infamous scenes, like this one, that turned into memes. But the fight scenes, the ones that needed the most movement and energy, were good. They knew how to hide the lack of budget and staff, and the same thing should have happened in Season 2, but that wasn't the case. It took them 2.5 years to release Season 2 at the end of 2023, and they even split it in half. We had to wait 4 more months for the last episodes, which only dropped in March 2024, and the result was worse than Season 1.
That doesn't make any sense.
But actually it does, because they switched to animation studios between seasons. Season 1 was made by a coalition between Skybound, Robert Kirkman's company, and Winsun Sky, a studio in Vancouver. They had teams in LA, and even hired some freelance animators from Korea and Japan, which is pretty common for American shows. But when Prime Video renewed the series for Season 2 and 3, Skybound decided to build its own animation division, to be independent. They hired Marge Dean to create Skybound Animation and put her in charge of producing Season 2. That decision impacted the entire schedule. Marge Dean said that when she joined Skybound, she had to start everything from scratch. There was no studio, no staff, just Kirkman, Cory Walker, the comics artist, and Simon Rasiopa, one of the executive producers. They had to hire new animators and set up a physical studio in LA, which was complicated by the pandemic. The animators only really started working in 2022, so they had way less time than they did for Season 1. This was confirmed by Katrin Snodgrass, one of the people in charge of the storyboards for Seasons 2 and 3.
I was hired as a storyboard revisionist in April of 2022 to work on the Adam Eve special. It actually took only a year, and we made 2 seasons at once.
Meanwhile, Skybound outsourced the teasers to Balak, the co-creator of Last Man. That's why the teasers have Mappa-level animation. A separate team worked exclusively on 2 short teasers, while the main team worked on the full season. Prime Video tricked us with these animation changes, but
so it's 2 different teams because it's saying one that worked with the teaser? Shouldn't they have got the people that worked on the teaser to work on the show instead of 2 different teams? Or am I just dumb and I'm missing something? But yeah, that's what they should have done.
Of quality for every episode would be ridiculous. We're comparing a 2-minute teaser to an 8-episode season where each episode is 40 minutes long. Besides, we can't underestimate the power and passion of a studio that's all about making horny furry stuff.
I'm a little turned on.
Back to the show. Switching animation teams between seasons affected the overall style. They used less CGI and went for more hand-drawn scenes. But since they had less time to work, some scenes ended up looking way too static. The best example is the battle between Omni-Man, Mark, and the Viltrumites on Thraxia. It should have been one of the best moments in the entire show, at least up to that point. But half of the fight felt like a slideshow, and the composition wasn't as polished as in Season 1. They had to split the season in 2 because they just couldn't keep up. Kirkman justified the split by saying they didn't want to release episodes during.
I'm not gonna lie, the fact that anybody notices like these little details with these PNGs and stuff is mind-blowing. Because when I'm just sitting there watching like Invincible, I just think it's a good show. Like I can't really tell none of what they're talking about. So yeah, I might just be blind though.
the holidays, and that they wanted Invincible to have a new season every year. But Rasiopa admitted they made the decision while production was already underway because they ran into problems. No one on the team wanted to say exactly what went wrong, but it's no coincidence that episode 4 had the worst animation in the entire show. I have no doubt that they were running out of time and had to delay the last episode simply because they weren't finished yet. If you don't believe me, listen to what Kirkman said in an interview with The Ringer. Coming from the live action world, I'm like, animation is like comics. There's no budget. We can do whatever we want. It's not exactly true, which is possibly the reason for some of our delays, because we had a big appetite and unrealistic expectations, and those kinds of things take time. That's the key word, time. The fan who reworked the composition of these shots said it took them 4 hours per shot. And earlier I mentioned that each episode has over 200 shots. That means at least 800 hours of work per episode just for compositing. An absolutely insane amount of time. Japanese studios can pull that off because their animators literally work 20-hour days. There have been cases where they had to sleep in the office, like what happened to Cloverworks staff during the production of Wonder Egg Priority. Sure, Japanese studios deliver better results for less money. Shows like Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, and Dandadan have way better animation.
Yo, okay, now that he brought up Chainsaw Man, yo, chat, when I first watched Chainsaw Man, that is so peak, bro. Like, you don't understand. That show was so good, especially at the end, bro. Oh my god, yo. Alright, hold on. I'm getting sidetracked. My fault.
Than Invincible, but they pull it off by overworking their animators to the extreme. They work in miserable conditions for ridiculously low wages. That doesn't happen in the US, where working conditions are much better. Of course, there's still room for improvement. Sony ran into problems for overworking the animators on Across the Spider-Verse. But in the US, people don't jump off buildings just because they couldn't finish an episode on time. For Invincible to look better, they'd need to take at least 3 years between seasons, and they'd need to hire more people. But that's never gonna happen. With the insane amount of content out there, thanks to the streaming wars, waiting 3 years for a new season is way too long. Invincible already risked losing relevance because of the long wait since 2021. If they kept doing that, people would just forget about the show. The ratings would tank, and Prime Video would cancel it before they even finished adapting the comic. Sure, there have been animated shows that made fans wait forever and still managed to stay popular, like Attack on Titan. They took 3 years to release season 2, and split the final season into a million parts, but the anime still kept its hype. But in the worst case scenario, Invincible could end up like Tower of God Season 2. Not even the animators' families watched that thing.
I'm not gonna watch it.
To make things worse, this is a really long series. Kirkman said he wants to do 7 or 8 seasons to cover the entire comic, so we're not even halfway there. If we had to wait 3 years between each season, the show wouldn't wrap up until 2037.
I'm gonna debunk that. One thing Kirkman said I saw on this Instagram reel was that he's gonna try to get each season out every year. So I don't think that's a good idea, but hey, that's what he said.
If we're lucky. It's a shame that Prime Video won't invest more in Invincible. With a bigger budget, the show could look way better, even if they wanted to release a season every year. It wouldn't be a visual masterpiece like Jujutsu Kaisen, but at least the fights would do the comic justice. And no one would say this is their favorite show despite the average animation. But the crazy thing is, despite all these production issues, Invincible has still managed to surpass Marvel and DC.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. And hey, and if y'all like me making these Invincible videos, hey, just let me know in the comments down below, and you know, I'll keep making them. But hey, peace.